Hey everybody, I'm here at the Fredericksburg Confederate Cemetery for a couple of reasons. One of which is because I love the sound of stone grinding.
Beautiful traveler, superfluous adventurer, turn the page, it's a new day in our story.
Hey everybody, I'm here at the Confederate Cemetery in Fredericksburg, Virginia, where I live, for a couple of reasons. One of which is I have a new YouTube friend. His name is Gary James, and he's an actor in England and a television presenter. In fact, the very first openly gay TV presenter on British television. And he now has a YouTube channel where he visits graveyards. He calls it Graveyard Ramblings, and he tells stories about Great Britain, about graveyards, and about his own career in television. So I hope you'll give him a look. I'll put his link below. He and I share a sort of a sensibility I think you'll enjoy. The other reason I'm here is to talk about a little bit of, problematic history, because I can't think of a better place to talk about problematic history. Except in this case, it's a problematic history of my own. I grew up in southwest Louisiana. And we moved there when I was 1 year old from Virginia because my dad wanted to fly helicopters and there was opportunity down there. And the time I spent there, I spent growing up with a cohort of friends up through elementary school, then middle school, and then high school. And one of the friends that joined us in middle school, we're going to call him Tran. And Tran was, his family was part of the migration post-Vietnam War from Vietnam to the United States. You may have heard the pejorative term boat people. And that is in reference to this migration. And Tran and his family settled in Lafayette, Louisiana, and had become a thriving, happy part of the community. And in high school, we had a teacher, civics teacher, and we're going to call her Miss D. And Miss D once looked Tran right in the face and said, "Why don't you get on a boat and go back where you came from?" A civics teacher. And we hear all this talk these days about we need more civics in schools. And I learned the hell out of bicameral legislature and the three branches of government and how a bill is made and the hats of the president and representatives and Senate. I learned all of that. But what good is it if the example the teacher is setting is that? The subject matter doesn't matter as much as the teacher does. Now, when I was very young in Louisiana, I had a lot of voluminous brown hair, believe it or not. And it was fine like baby hair. People used to "Oh, Keith, your hair." Looking at you, Angela. And so when I would sweat in the Louisiana sun, it would get sticky and it would hang over my forehead in little stringy fingers. And people, my friends at least, would tell me I looked like Hitler. Thanks, friends. So when we got to high school, and the school said one day, "Hey, it's Halloween, you can come to class dressed in costume." Yeah, I went as Hitler. Yep, I did. I wore a blue jacket. I made a swastika armband. I went out of my way. And I put on my dad's army cap, and I used my mom's eyebrow pencil to paint my Charlie Chaplin on. And off I went to the bus stop. And I stood at the bus stop with my back to the street. And every time I heard a car coming by, I'd whip around, click my heels, and throw my very best Nazi salute at the car. And at least 2 cars swerved out of, I'm sure, what the f***, right? See, I knew about Hitler. I knew about Nazis. I did, because I had seen them on Hogan's Heroes. And I'd seen them in The Producers. And I'd seen them in Indiana Jones. And I knew they were bad guys. And I knew they were the subject of mockery. And so I was just sort of doing the same. We had never been asked, my entire education in Louisiana, to read the Diary of Anne Frank. And we had never been taught about the Holocaust. And so what did I know? I had no social or historical context for my behavior. And because I had not heard the first-hand stories of the horrors of the Holocaust, I also had no empathy or compassion for how my behavior would affect another person. So when I got to high school, Ms. D saw me. She said, Keith, come with me at lunchtime. So I went with her. She stood me outside the teacher's lounge door, and she said, I'm going to go in there. When I come back out, I want you to click your heels and throw your very best Nazi salute. And I went, oh, teacher likes me. Okay, I can do that. Fun. So she went into the teacher's lounge. She came back out, clicked my heels, threw that Nazi salute, and right behind her was another teacher who, when she saw me, turned ashen and recoiled physically, pulled back and lost her balance, and she had to be stabilized by another teacher behind her. And I was confused. And I looked over at Ms. D, and Ms. D laughed. I mean, laughed. And I was confused. I didn't understand what had just happened. I didn't realize that I had just given a Nazi salute to one of the 2 or 3 Jewish teachers in the entire school. And that Miss D had orchestrated that as a joke. Social emotional learning is about the teaching of compassion and empathy. And history and social studies is about teaching a historical and social context for the things that have happened in the past so we don't repeat them on scales large and small. And I don't understand why people want to stop that from being taught. I don't get it. I really don't. I think the fear maybe is that once you realize these deficiencies in yourself, you start to see them in systems around you. And I'll give you another example. When I was on Facebook about a year or 2 ago, yes, I still use it, don't judge me. One of my friends, his name is Steve, posted a question on Facebook. He said, how many times have you been held at gunpoint by the police? And I thought, well, never, Steve. But I started reading all of the replies on his feed there, and there were a lot of people that I knew and love and respect, friends of mine, close friends of mine, who started talking about how it happened to them all the time when they were walking down the street late at night during a traffic stop for no real violation. And there were assumptions made about their criminality because of the color of their skin. My experience told me, yeah, this doesn't happen. But learning about their experiences firsthand, people that I care about, people that I love, people that I respect, and seeing what was done to them, huge eye-opener. And that changes us, listening to and hearing one another's stories. So that's why I'm here. I will say this. After living in Louisiana in a semi-segregated environment and then moving to Virginia where there wasn't, I was under the impression, because of my long life in Louisiana, that black people and white people needed to learn to work together and figure out who one another are. I know. It was years ago. And when I got to college at Virginia Tech, I was teaching I was assistant teaching an acting class in the summer for non-majors, and I knew there were going to be a lot of athletes fulfilling their fine arts credit at Virginia Tech in the class, and so I went to a friend of mine who was dating, a black guy, and I said, "Would you help me out? I want some lingo. I want to be able to relate." And Elizabeth looked at me and said, "No, I'm not going to do that for you. No." And I begged her. I said, "Please, please, please." And she said, "Fine. Look, if they give you any, slack, just tell them not to diss you." I was like, "What?" She said, yeah, not to disrespect you. Just say, "Don't diss me." I was like, "Don't diss me." She said, yeah. And she threw me that look and she walked away. And I sat on that for like 3 weeks. And I don't even remember what happened. One of the students in the class said something to me, and it made me go, aha, here's my opportunity. And I looked that young man in the eyes and I said, "Don't you sid me, man." I got it backwards. And he looked at me like, "What?" I said, "You heard what I said. Don't you sid me." And I walked away, leaving him very confused. And when I went back to Elizabeth and I said, "I did it. I said, don't you sid me, man." She said, "No, you didn't do that, did you?" My life since then has been a lot about growing up and understanding and loving the people that are my friends and trying to listen to the way their lives are built and what their experiences are. Because I acknowledge that my experience in this world is not indicative of everyone's experience in this world. And it's vital we see through one another's lenses. And that's what the storytelling thing is all about. There's a story about to happen right there. So go forth. Go forth and tell stories and listen to and hear other people's. We'll do this again sometime.
Everyone's got a tale, changing scripts, wins and fails. What we've learned, what we've lost, all become the sum of us. Beautiful traveler, superfluous adventurer. Turn the page, it's a new day in our story. In our story. Whoa, 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 whoa. In our story.